Have you ever wondered what really separates a good idea from a truly groundbreaking one? It's not just some random flash of genius. Today, we're going to unpack the innovator's toolkit and get into the two key components that can transform entire industries and build incredible leaders.
Right? It's the question that drives pretty much every entrepreneur, every creator, every leader out there. How do you go from a common, everyday problem to a solution that's totally revolutionary? Well, it turns out it all starts with how you think about the problem in the first place. So let's start with this idea, thinking beyond the baseline. The biggest barrier to innovation often isn't a lack of money or people. It's a way of thinking that keeps us stuck in the past. We call this baseline thinking. And honestly, it's the default setting for most of us.
So think of it like two different paths you can take. On one side, you have baseline thinking. This is all about reasoning by analogy. We do this all the time. We say, hey, this worked before, so let's just do a slightly better version of it. But on the other side, you have first principles thinking. And that's about boiling things down to their most fundamental truths. That's where the real magic happens.
Now, to be clear, baseline thinking isn't always a bad thing. It's actually pretty efficient for making small, incremental improvements. But here's the catch. It will never lead to a revolutionary leap forward because it keeps you operating completely inside the existing box. To create something truly new, you have to tear that box apart.
And that brings us right to the first tool in our toolkit. First principles thinking isn't about just improving an idea. No, it's about deconstructing it, breaking it down to its absolute core pieces, and then building it back up from scratch, completely free from all those old assumptions.
Let's look at a classic example here. When Elon Musk decided he wanted to send a rocket to Mars, he immediately hit a huge wall. The baseline assumption, the thing everyone in the industry just accepted, was that rockets are just unbelievably, unavoidably expensive, period.
But instead of just accepting that, Musk asked a much more fundamental question. He didn't ask, how can I get a cheaper rocket? He asked, what is a rocket actually made of, at its most basic level? This simple question completely changed the game.
So he broke it all the way down. What's a rocket? Well, it's some aerospace-grade aluminum alloys, a little titanium, some copper, and carbon fiber. See, he wasn't looking at already assembled parts that have these huge markups. He was looking at the raw materials you could just go and buy on the open market.
And the results of this exercise was staggering. When he actually calculated the cost of all those raw materials, it turned out they were only about 2% of a rocket's typical price. The other 98%? That was all just manufacturing complexity and decades of baked-in assumptions. By starting from scratch, he figured out a way to build rockets for a tiny fraction of the cost.
And listen, this isn't some new age business fad. This idea goes all the way back to Aristotle, who defined a first principle as the first basis from which a thing is known. It's all about finding that foundational truth that you can really truly build upon.
So how do you actually use this? Well, this framework here shows the way. First, you define your problem and what you want to achieve. Then, you identify the most basic building blocks. But the next step is absolutely crucial. You have to question every single assumption you have about them. And only then can you build a new solution from the ground up, based only on those fundamental truths.
Okay, so first principles thinking gives you this incredibly powerful mindset for coming up with breakthrough ideas. But an idea, no matter how brilliant it is pretty useless without execution, right? So that raises the next big question. How do you build the innovators who can actually turn these ideas into reality?
And this brings us to the second tool in our toolkit, building a leader's mindset. See, it's not enough to just think differently. You need a system to cultivate talent, transfer knowledge, and provide support. And this is exactly where strategic mentorship comes into play.
Now, strategic mentorship is way more than just occasional, friendly advice over coffee. It's a deliberate, structured framework that's designed to accelerate growth. It's about pairing experienced leaders with emerging talent to transfer not just knowledge, but actual wisdom and strategic insight. Here's a good way to think about it. First principles thinking gives you the blueprint for innovation. But strategic mentorship, that builds the architect who can actually construct the building. A revolutionary mindset is absolutely necessary, but it's just not enough on its own. So let's really dig into the mentorship advantage. What makes it so critical for an innovator? Well, it goes way beyond just technical skills. It's about building a complete leader.
Mentorship is all about developing the whole innovator. It builds the technical skills you need to create a new solution from the ground up. It sharpens those soft skills that are so essential for leading a team and selling a vision.
And it provides that crucial career support to help you navigate all the risks that come with blazing a new trail.
And let's just focus on those soft skills for a second. Things like effective communication, leadership, and collaboration. These aren't just nice-to-haves. If you're an innovator trying to convince people to abandon what they've always known and follow you into the unknown, these skills are basically essential for survival.
Okay, let's bring it all together now. We've looked at a really powerful way to think and a powerful system to build leaders. When you put them together, they form a complete, well-rounded toolkit for innovation.
This is the core idea right here. True, sustainable innovation isn't just one or the other. It's the combination of a new mindset, like first principles thinking, and a strong support system to actually execute on it, like strategic mentorship. One without the other is always going to be incomplete.
This quote just captures the essence of that support system perfectly. Mentorship literally bridges the gap between a great idea on paper and its practical application out there in the real world. It gives people the power to take a novel concept and navigate all the complexities of making it a reality.
So, we'll leave you with this final thought. In your work, in your industry, maybe even in your own life, what is the rockets are expensive assumption that everybody around you just accepts without question? What is the very first assumption that you need to start to deconstruct?